Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about a beauty stock called Oddity. Oddity owns two brands. One of them is called e.l.f, one of them is called Spoiled Child. And I titled this video Better Than e.l.f. This is nothing against e.l.f. I think e.l.f. is a great company. In fact, I have praised it multiple times in my prior videos. It's just that with the election and with the tariffs, I am getting more and more comfortable as a long-term investor looking at a company that makes the products in Europe, where the tariffs are going to be 10%, and not one that makes the products in China, where unfortunately the tariffs are going to be 60%. So that's my main point in this video. I'm just saying this before people tell me, oh, e.l.f. is great and I'm being unfair to e.l.f. No, I own e.l.f. I think e.l.f. I've praised e.l.f. before, but I prefer Oddity now. I prefer Oddity now because of that tariff issue. Okay, now that I've put that out of the way, let's talk about e.l.f. Let's talk about Spoiled Child and Oddity itself as a business. So Oddity, they are a tech company that uses tech, uses machine learning, data science. They have a lot of data scientists working at their headquarters. They use that to create products in the beauty / cosmetics space and create more compelling brands and compelling products that are sold mostly via social media. Understand Instagram, TikTok, very popular brands and quickly growing brands. They have two brands. One of them is e.l.f. The second one is Spoiled Child. These brands are newer. They're both less than 7 years old. From what I understand, e.l.f. is a 2018 brand based on what I can find online. These brands are on track to becoming a $1 billion in sales a year brand for each of them. And in fact, because we know there's a trade-off between growth and profit, right? How much money do you want to spend on marketing? With these brands, with these direct-to-consumer brands, the more you spend on marketing, the faster you grow. Given the environment today, Oddity is a company that has decided that they want to have EBITDA margin. They want to make, I use EBITDA margin as a proxy for free cash flow. They do too. So they want to make an economic profit. They want to make money. They spend that on the buybacks, by the way, but they don't want to make too much of it, right? And so if they make 30 or more than 30% EBITDA margin like they did this quarter, well, they made too much. So they need to spend more on marketing to increase the growth of the business. It's all about that trade-off. If you're ready to make less EBITDA margin, what can you do with the money that doesn't go into the margin? You can put it into marketing. And if you put more money into marketing, you grow quicker. So they have a model. Their goal is to grow at 20% a year and to exceed 20% EBITDA margin. They've been consistently doing better than that, but they are nonetheless communicating in the market that that's what they want to achieve over the long run, and it makes sense. 20% revenue growth plus 20% margin. That's the rule of 40. That's what the VCs love. That's why so many investors look at. Now, what about the product mix between Spoiled Child and e.l.f? Spoiled Child, e.l.f. So, briefly, e.l.f. started as a foundation brand. What is a foundation? Something you put on your face to match the color of your skin. They used AI, they used machine learning, they used models to try to match each woman's face color to the right makeup. I actually tried it out. I tried to go through the e.l.f. website to go through the questionnaire and the matching algorithm. It's pretty darn advanced. After 5 minutes, I had to quit because there were too many questions. I think the product works based on everything I can read and what happens when women find the right foundation. Typically, they stick to it, which is why Oddity has such a high recurring revenue business. More than 50% of women come back and buy the product again when it runs out. Spoiled Child, this is a collagen / hair care / dandruff care / hair care spray product. I don't really know how to define it. It's a dermatology brand. It's a hair slash scalp maintenance brand. It's really resonating on social media. Lots of Instagram. Lots of dermatologists talking about the brand. It's this very Instagram friendly marketing where you see the bottle. It's this shiny metal thing. Probably works really well on social media. The brand is also resonating with a customer, but it's a newer brand. And so I dug into the conference call. I dug that out and I'm like, okay, they don't really share the mix, but they gave us something away in the conference call. They said that Il Maquillage this year is on track to achieve $500 million in sales this year for Il Maquillage. That's a good info because we know how much they're predicting to sell this year. They're predicting to sell $643 million in sales this year. And we know that 500 of that will be Il Maquillage. So we got the product mix. The product mix is 77% of the sales is for the foundation business, the Il Maquillage business, and they have other products now in there as well. The other one is 23% of sale is for their spray business, skincare business, hair care, collagen type business. This is actually pretty darn outstanding. This tells me I'm pleasantly surprised to see that Spoiled Child is 23% of sales. This tells me that this is not a meaningless contribution. This is actually a successful brand, a quickly growing brand. Keep in mind that brand is 150 million essentially, right? It's essentially a $150 million a year in sales brand. This one is newer, it's growing much faster. This one is slightly older, it's growing a little slower. When you put all of these two together, you can see since the beginning of the year, all of these two combined, 9 months ended since early, January 2024 until today, they grew plus 27%. So, and that's 9 months in. So their growth target of only 20% growth per year, they blew that out of the water. And the CEO also complained on the call about beating the EBITDA margin target too, saying they make too much money, they need to reinvest the money elsewhere, and they're working on new brands. They're investing that money and building a new brand, which would be brand free. And they're working on 2 new brands, Brand 3 and Brand 4. You can see them written here in their mystery boxes here. We don't know anything about Brand 4. They're not saying anything. But we have a sentence about Brand 3. So what is Brand 3 going to be about? It's going to be a direct-to-consumer telehealth platform for consumers with skin and body issues. They clarified later in the call that by body issues, because guess what? As soon as they said body issues, guess what all of the analysts wonder? GLP is going to be a GLP-1. The CEO was quick to say, no, by body issues, they mean eczema. So skincare, eczema, and they have a team that's progress. They've already figured out the brand and the brand identity and the product of offering. They've invested a lot in tech, and we know it's going to be based on vision technology. So it's probably going to be pairing algorithms with vision tools, likely the camera on your phone. And so I don't know what it's going to be. It's like, maybe is it going to be, do you have an issue with eczema? Do you have a skin problem? Scan your arm, scan your skin, scan your face for acne, and maybe the software kind of acts as an, kind of like you would see a dermatologist, and the dermatologist tries to figure out what's going on with your rosacea or your acne or your eczema. Maybe they build that into the app, and it's the software that scans your skin, and then they go on with having a customized product just for that. But that's all we know. It's going to be a telehealth platform for consumers with skin and body issues. Given that I cover this space extensively with LifeMD, with HIMSS, with Talkspace, I can tell you that it's a very hot space. And so if Oddity could have a dermatology-focused brand of prescription type products for dermatology, eczema care, rosacea care, acne care, I can tell you that would probably be a hit. That would probably be a major hit. That would probably be targeted also only at women, right? Oddity, from what I understand, they only target women. So that's also their specialty, and that's why they're so good at leveraging these brands and understanding how it goes, how it works. Anyways, back to comparing Oddity and e.l.f. And why would I like Oddity better than e.l.f. after much thinking? Well, one easy reason is you can look at the valuation here. Obviously, Oddity is cheaper, not a lot cheaper, but it's a good, let's call it 30% cheaper roughly, right? A little less than 30% cheaper. It's cheaper. That's point number one. But there's other very good points. So I've already mentioned the made in China versus made in Europe, right? The products for Oddity are made in Europe, from what I understand. A lot of them are made in Italy, is what I understand. But again, they kind of don't communicate too much on that. But it's made in the EU. 10% tariffs is likely what's going to be for the EU made makeup, and so if that is the case, that's not going to be a problem for them to import to the US. Keep in mind, this brand is still mostly in the US. This is on the other hand not an advantage that e.l.f. has, because e.l.f. Makes 80% of their makeup in China, and there could be a 60% tariff on e.l.f. products. I know the market entirely dismissed e.l.f. Tariff issue on the last call. I know the market brushed it off because it's an end of 2025 matter, and the market only looks at the current quarter and the next quarter. But nonetheless, as a long-term investor, I have to look at a future where we may have 50 or 60% tariffs. I don't want to be owning, I'll be owning it. I'm not planning on selling my e.l.f., but I'm not going to add to it. It's going to stay a micro position for me, because now that is a new risk that manifested itself, and that was always part of the thesis in e.l.f. was, well, what if that happens? Well, that could be bad. But I don't know. Maybe you have a miracle. Maybe makeup will be excluded from the tariffs for a reason or another. That you could have a miracle like that. So I don't know. Anyways, the point number one is, the more I study my stocks and study my companies, and I tell myself, gosh, do I love the direct-to-consumer business model. You may know one of my top stocks is Tesla. One of the top reasons why I love Tesla is because they are a direct-to-consumer car company. They sell the cars online. I guess you could order it from a showroom, but they don't go through the dealers. They go direct to the consumer. So they own their destiny. When you go buy a distributor via a store, via a distributor, you don't own your destiny. Distributors are/can be, depending on who you distribute with, they can be a major impediment to growth. And this has been the case since the beginning of day with store brands, right? Distributors try to push their own store brand, and they put it at eye level, and it's always cheaper, and they always make it look more appealing to buy the store brand, right? Go to Walmart. If you see great value, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to buy great value pasta today. I don't need to buy Barilla. Why would I buy Barilla? I can buy great value. Great value is 50% cheaper. Well, they do that for makeup. They do that for everything, right? You go to a beauty store. I know you have a lot of cheap brands that are emphasized right next to, say, the e.l.f. products of the world, right? So you don't control as much as DTC. DTC, you control the whole experience. When you go for a distributor, you don't quote unquote own your million recurring customers, and I use the term own loosely. You never own the customer, but you don't control a million customers. No, you have a dozen of very, very large customers, and when there's an issue, it can hurt. And when I analyze my companies where I've overlooked this, I've been burnt a few times, right? Celsius. The reason why Celsius dropped 70% is because of Pepsi. Because Pepsi ordered too much, and then all of a sudden Pepsi stopped ordering, and as a result of that, it looks on Celsius like the sales are down 30%. Now, as a long-term investor, that's not a problem for me, because I can dig into the report and see why the revenue is not smooth, right? But do you think Wall Street does that? Do you think they dig? No. Every new quarter that gets released, you have thousands of robo articles who just take the top line revenue and say, look, it was an awful quarter. And then you have to go through all of the explanation to say, no, actually, the product is still selling through at the distributor, and you have to spend so much time explaining that. Another thing is Enphase. Enphase was the same issue as Celsius, right? Enphase's customers are not millions of homeowners. They are thousands of installers. They are the customers, right? So Enphase doesn't sell direct to the end consumer. That's why I love direct to consumer. Direct to consumer is so much better, in my view, than selling to a customer who then will sell to your consumer and have control of your consumer. And so if Enphase raises prices too much, what do you think happens? They're going to offer solar edge at the installer level. If Celsius starts to get too greedy in how much they want to charge for their drinks, maybe 7-Eleven starts pushing Monster instead. So you don't have full control. That's point number one. Point number two is distributors ask for rebates, concessions of all kind. When you don't have access to the end consumer, you are in a position to you are not in a position to negotiate. It's your distributor who has the upper hand, and they ask a lot of store displays, a lot of rebates, a lot of things, and sometimes, and this is perhaps peculiar in the makeup industry. This may be a makeup industry thing. But the CEO of Oddity was saying that sometimes a distributor, they will take you on for just one season for novelty. Like they want to bring variety to the customer, and so they will list a few SKUs of a new product you have just to make the storefront more exciting, just to make the aisle more exciting, but they don't really commit to your new product. They just add you for novelty's sake, and then they let you go. So once again, you don't control your destiny as much when you are going through distributor for yourselves. And lastly, and this is a beautiful 21st century point, which I love so much, you don't own the data. When you don't go DTC, you don't own the data. And so a lot of makeup companies, they have to rely on, and I'm going to add that sometimes, very expensive style experts, trendsetters, trend specialists, fashionistas, whatever you want to call them, director of trends and fashion and whatever. And the goal of this job, but this job is it's a very analog job. It's all in the mind of whatever director you point to guess what the trends are going to be. And they're there, and they're kind of the fashion gurus, and they have to guess what the customers will want. On the other hand, Oddity doesn't do that. Oddity has a bunch of, and it's 40% of their staff, Oddity has a bunch of software engineers who just stare at their computer, and data scientists who just stare at their computer and design products that are actually based on masses and masses of customer input, hundreds of thousands of inputs, feedback, data rows that you just analyze and analyze until you get the product right and you get the brand right and you get to guess where the trends are headed. The data is everything in the 21st century business. Being a direct-to-consumer company means you have access to the data, which you don't necessarily have when you are going through a distributor. And I can tell you one thing, right? When you study Celsius, they still rely on old world industry associations every month to look at the sell-through and look at the data. The IT is just not nearly as good as a DTC company. So going back to my first analysis of Oddity, the first time I analyzed Oddity, I was so compelled by it because of a DTC segment. I had warmed up to the idea of e.l.f. and the in-store because their growth is so stellar over there at e.l.f. But in light of a new tariff, I'm going back to my DTC value proposition and going back with Oddity and going back with a cheaper choice. So I am done buying e.l.f. My new buys, whenever I make one in that sector, it will be Oddity. And for all meaningful economic impact on my portfolio, meaningful discussion of my portfolio, I essentially don't own e.l.f., just a tracker position, and my portfolio is gonna have, it already has, but it's gonna have a more meaningful position in Oddity. Oddity remains my main and only fashion slash women products play. That's what it is. So anyways, this was not financial advice, not investment advice. This is just entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.